As business professionals that have been around more than a day, all of us have probably had it come down from on high. We need to improve. We gotta get better. Anybody relate to that? Thank you very much for those that are still awake. So what do? We hire a consultant. Thank you very much. Here's my card. We come in, and what happens? Business process, inventory control, sales techniques. But if you remember the kids' game Jenga with all the interlocking blocks, what's missing? What's missing is you can do all your business process improvement, but if you don't work with the hearts and minds of the workforce, then your process improvement is not going to work. Mighty bold talk, you say, Bud. Thank you very much, John. I had a client, Warehouse One. They're out on the east side of town by the stadium. They buy and sell used and new warehousing equipment. My client was Tom Doty. He was the director of operations. And he hired me and said, I need to improve my receiving dock. I need to improve my shipping dock. And he had a third section called fabrication. So I came in, I did exactly what we expect. Flow charts, job descriptions, inputs, outputs, and things got a little bit better. But Tom was a specific sort of leader because he knew that the hard side of management was the soft side of leadership. He knew you had to tie in to what people felt. So he said, Bud, I want people that work out in the warehouse, and remember, if you don't know a warehouse environment, this is blue collar. We actually had a couple that were functional illiterates. They had to take their health forms home to have their wives read to them. Very blue collar. So when you start talking about values and life's ambitions, they've never had this conversation. So he said, Bud, go out, talk to the receiving team. I'd like to know what they think makes for a successful day. Number of orders received, number of inventory, number of, or value, cash value. So I went out, pulled them together, and this was a benefit that I brought to the project. It's as an outsider, they could tell me anything. They knew that I would sanitize it before I took it back up to the boss up at headquarters. I was an honest broker. So I said, how do you know when you've had a good day? What makes your day successful? We had this one gal, bless her heart, Jean. She looked me dead in the eye and said, Bud, I know I've had a good day when Tom hasn't yelled at me. Oh, hasn't yelled. Now here's a guy that wanted the staff to feel good, and he's got a reputation as being a yeller. I went up to him, I said, Tom, we need to talk. He said, this is what I heard. I said, that's not your values. I said, let's go talk. We went and found a spare corner of the warehouse, and for 2 hours, I made him sit down and started talking about his business values. What do you appreciate? I said, here's half the problem. The only time you're out in the warehouse is when a problem has come up at headquarters. So when the staff sees you walking down the aisle, it's, uh-oh, who's in trouble now? And they start hiding from you. So, being a good consultant, I worked up my own form, specialized, and I said, here's your values that you've stated to me, and I capsulized them down to about 6. I said, here's your 3 sections. I said, this week, you need to go out to the warehouse and catch people doing something right. Write it down. I'll come back in 1 week. 1 week, I came back to a review. He said, boy, this is really tough. I said, yeah, it is when you start dealing with hearts and minds. The second week, I walked into his office for our review. He picked up a stapler and wanted to throw it at me. He said, you doggone consultant, you, this is really tough. I said, Yeah, it is when you're dealing with hearts and minds. The third week, I walked in and he says, I got it now. See, for those of you that are in training, those of you that are in business improvement or self-improvement, you know it takes 21 days to create a new habit. That's why I made him do it for 3 weeks. Now that would have been good enough. And Tom would have been a much better leader, and he was. But we wanted to take it to the next level. So after interviewing him, I then went to his direct reports, his 3 supervisors. I interviewed them to see what their values were. I gave them the same sort of score sheet. And things improved. But we took it to the next level. Over the next 3 weeks, I interviewed 80% of the workforce in groups of 2s and 3s to see what their values were. And if one person said teamwork, someone else may have said cooperation. I recorded them both. Because this was not coming down from on high, this was coming from the bottom up. It was the workforce values. Then we published them, 15 different values. And then we started with the weekly meetings. We got the staff together for this section. Said, here's the values. Which one do you want to pick? They said, let's look at teamwork. So for the next week, they looked for opportunities where they could demonstrate teamwork and look for where other people were demonstrating teamwork. We did it for 3 weeks with that section. Then we moved to the next. For 1 year, we held weekly meetings. Some Tom facilitated, some I facilitated. Then we trained the supervisors. It was their values. They picked which ones to work on. The owner, who worked up in the sales department, she looked at Tom one day and said, Tom, I don't know what you're doing out there in the warehouse, but it's working. See, business Jenga, it's all tied together. So getting their hearts and minds committed, that's what made it work. Did it work? Before I started the project, they were making $6.5 million a year. When I finished the project, $8 million a year. Hearts and minds. Madam Toastmaster.